Welcome back to Random History. I am your navigator as we explore the little-known events and people that make history such an amazing subject. The events I delve into are probably not ones you learned about in school. These are the ones that when you do hear about them, you're likely to think that they could not possibly be real. But they are. I have taught Introduction to Psychology for the last 12 years or so at both the high school and college level. Like I said, it's an introductory class, so we cover many of the theorists and topics that you'd expect. DeCartres, Pavlov, Freud, Jung, Watson. But one of the most important theorists that we cover in the class is someone you're probably familiar with, a guy by the name of B.F. Skinner. There have been all kinds of stories about Skinner and his experiments through the years, but I stumbled upon today's story while I was searching for a video on operant conditioning to show my students. The story is how Skinner worked with the military during World War II to come up with a new guidance system for bombs. Like I say in the introduction, when you hear this story, you're going to think that it cannot possibly be real. But it is. Burris Frederick Skinner, better known as B.F. Skinner, was one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century. Renowned for his work in behavioral psychology, Skinner developed the theory of operant conditioning, which has become the cornerstone of behavioral science. Beyond psychology, his contributions extended into applied domains as well, most notably during World War II, when he developed a rather unique guidance system for bombs dropped on Japanese ships in the Pacific. A Pidgeon guidance system, known as Project Pidgeon. Operant conditioning is a method of learning that employs rewards and punishments for behavior. Skinner expanded upon the work of earlier behavioral psychologists like John B. Watson and Edward Thorndike, particularly Thorndike's law of effect, which stated that behaviors followed by favorable consequences are more likely to recur. Skinner introduced the term operant to describe behavior that operates on the environment to produce consequences. His primary innovation was the systematic study of how reinforcement and punishment shape behavior over time. In his experiments, he often used what he called the Skinner box, a controlled environment where animals such as rats or pigeons could be studied. The box typically included a lever or key that the animal could manipulate to receive a reward, such as food, or to avoid a punishment, such as a mild electric shock. These experiments demonstrated the principles of reinforcement, both positive and negative, as well as punishment. Positive reinforcement involves presenting a stimulus after a desired behavior, increasing the likelihood of that behavior's recurrence. For example, a rat pressing on a lever to receive food exemplifies positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement, conversely, involves the removal of an adverse stimulus, also increasing the probability of this behavior. Punishment, on the other hand, aims to reduce the behavior's occurrence by presenting an adverse stimulus or removing a pleasant one, such as restricting a child from screen time or sending the child to his room. Skinner's work in operant conditioning also introduced schedules of reinforcement, which describe how frequently a behavior is reinforced. Continuous reinforcement provides a reward after every instance of the desired behavior, while intermittent reinforcement provides rewards only occasionally. Intermittent reinforcement proved much more resistant to the extinction of the behavior, illustrating how complex patterns of behavior develop in real-world settings. An example of an intermittent reinforcement schedule would be similar to the slot machines in a casino. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Besides being found in casinos, Skinner's principles of operant conditioning are in many other diverse fields, including education, therapy, and animal training. His approach, termed behavior modification, became a key strategy for shaping behavior in clinical and educational settings. Token economies, a system where tokens are earned for desired behaviors and later exchanged for rewards, are a direct application of Skinner's work. We see this in practice in elementary school settings where students receive a sticker for completing their homework. Then, after so many stickers are earned, the student gets to choose a special prize from the teacher's stash of candy or cheap prizes. I still remember my third grade teacher, Mrs. Rykowski, doing this for us. Skinner's theories had a strong influence on parenting as well, with an emphasis on positive reinforcement over punishment. In Walden 2, his utopian novel, Skinner envisioned a society that applied behavioral principles to create a harmonious and efficient economy, demonstrating his belief in the practical potential of operant conditioning. While Skinner's contributions to psychology are widely celebrated, his involvement in Project Pidgeon during World War II is much less well known. At the height of the war, the Allied forces sought innovative solutions to enhance their military capabilities. Skinner proposed using pigeons to guide bombs to their targets, a concept that seemed unconventional, but it was grounded in his expertise in behavioral psychology. The military was intrigued by the potential of Skinner's idea. Conventional guidance systems for missiles and bombs were still in their infancy, and Skinner's plan offered a low-cost alternative. The concept was simple, yet ingenious. Pigeons, trained through operant conditioning, would peck at a target displayed on a screen within the bomb's nose cone. The pecking movements would adjust the bomb's trajectory, ensuring that it stayed on course. To train the pigeons, Skinner used the same principles he had demonstrated in the Skinner box. The birds were conditioned to peck at an image of a target, such as a ship, by associating the behavior with food rewards. Over time, the pigeons learned to reliably identify and peck at the target, even under distracting conditions. Skinner's experiments showed remarkable success, with the pigeons maintaining accuracy despite simulated turbulence and rapid motion. The project received initial funding from the National Defense Research Committee, which allowed Skinner to build a prototype. However, despite its promise, Project Pidgeon faced skepticism from military officials. The notion of using live animals in a critical wartime device seemed far-fetched and unreliable compared to emerging electronic guidance technologies. Ultimately, the project was shelved in favor of more conventional systems, although it demonstrated the potential of behaviorally trained animals in practical applications. Although Project Pidgeon did not see active deployment, it underscored Skinner's ability to apply scientific principles to real-world challenges. The project highlighted the versatility of operant conditioning and paved the way for future research into animal training for practical purposes. Decades later, similar principles were applied in various fields, from search and rescue operations to assisting people with disabilities. Skinner's work during the war also reflected his broader philosophy of science. He believed that behavioral science could solve practical problems and improve human life. Project Pidgeon, while unconventional, exemplified his belief by applying behavioral principles to address a technological challenge. Skinner's work, both in operant conditioning and Project Pidgeon, has faced criticism. Some critics argue that his focus on observable behavior neglected the importance of internal mental states. Cognitive psychologists like Noam Chomsky challenged Skinner's views, particularly his attempts to explain language acquisition solely through operant conditioning. Project Pidgeon, too, was met with skepticism. While innovative, the project's reliance on animal behavior raised ethical questions and practical concerns. Critics doubted the reliability of live pigeons in high-stakes military operations and questioned the morality of using animals in such roles. Despite these criticisms, Skinner's work remains influential. His theories laid the foundation for behavioral analysis, and his commitment to applying science for practical purposes continues to inspire researchers and practitioners. B.F. Skinner's contributions to psychology and his innovative wartime project demonstrate the breadth and depth of his impact on science and society. Operant conditioning revolutionized the understanding of behavior, providing a framework for studying and shaping human and animal actions. Project Pidgeon, while ultimately unfeasible for military use, showcased Skinner's ingenuity and his belief in the practical applications of behavioral science. Today, the military has used his methods to train honeybees to locate roadside bombs, as well as to train dolphins to detect, locate, and recover underwater objects. Skinner's legacy endures in both academic and applied settings. His theories remain central to behavioral psychology, while his unconventional experiments remind us of the creative possibilities of scientific inquiry. By exploring new frontiers, from the laboratory to the battlefield, Skinner demonstrated the transformative potential of science to address complex challenges and to expand human knowledge. Skinner's work was truly unorthodox. For that reason, the military was highly skeptical of a pigeon's effectiveness as a guidance system. After all, they were still highly skeptical of the accuracy of radar in delivering bombs on target. That's why so many of our bombs fell so far inland at Omaha Beach on D-Day. But I think I'll save that story for another episode. For our True Heroes segment today, I'm going to stick with the theme of the unorthodox. You see, our hero for today was a rather unorthodox spy during World War II. She rose to fame as a jazz musician during the Harlem Renaissance. For years, I've played music in my classroom from the era of history that my classes are studying. Every year, I cannot wait until we get to the 20s and 30s so I can play the works of Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, and Bessie Smith. I never realized until a few years ago that one of the greats that I love listening to during this time was also a spy during World War II. In fact, there is even an episode of one of my favorite TV shows, very loosely based on her story. The show was Hogan's Heroes, and today's hero is Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker was an internationally renowned entertainer. She played a crucial yet unconventional role during World War II, using her fame and talents to assist the French resistance. Born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1906, Baker rose to prominence as a singer, dancer, and actress, famously performing in Paris, where she became a symbol of glamour and sexual liberation. However, her involvement in the war effort reveals another side of her character, that of a brave and committed patriot who risked her life to fight against Nazi Germany. At the onset of World War II, Baker was living in Paris, which was soon occupied by Nazi forces in 1940. The occupation did not deter her. In fact, it fueled her determination to act. As a naturalized French citizen, she felt a deep allegiance to her adopted country. Despite being a black woman in a racially segregated France, Baker's fame allowed her to navigate spaces that were otherwise inaccessible to others in the resistance movement. Her celebrity status was both an asset and a shield, enabling her to move freely across borders, gather intelligence, and forge connections with influential figures in the anti-Nazi underground. Baker's first contribution to the war effort came in 1940, when she began performing for soldiers and in charitable concerts aimed at raising funds for the French resistance. These performances were not just for entertainment. They were part of a strategy to rally public morale and keep the spirit of resistance alive during the dark days of the occupation. According to the author Phyllis Rose, Baker's performances were critical in maintaining a sense of hope and unity among the French people, showing them that the battle for freedom was not lost. However, Baker's role became much more active and dangerous when she joined the French resistance in 1941. She used her status as a performer to conduct espionage and smuggle information between resistance cells. Baker's frequent travels for performances, including trips to neutral countries like Spain and Portugal, provided the perfect cover for carrying secret messages. She used her connection with high-ranking Nazi officers, whom she entertained at various events, to gather intelligence about enemy movements and plans. Baker's ability to blend in with elite society gave her an edge, as she could eavesdrop on important conversations without arousing suspicion. Baker's espionage work was not without risk. In 1942, the Nazis arrested several resistance members who had been working with Baker, including her close collaborators. The danger escalated when the Gestapo grew suspicious of her activities. However, Baker continued her efforts undeterred. In a testament to her commitment, she once remarked, "I'm not afraid. I'm fighting for a cause that is much larger than me." This sense of purpose, combined with her courage, helped her to survive the perilous years of the war. In addition to her intelligence work, Baker also took on the role of a nurse and ambulance driver during the war. She helped care for injured soldiers and civilians, showing her deep empathy for the plight of those affected by the war. In recognition of her contributions, Baker was awarded the Croix de Guerre and Légion d'honneur by the French government, two of the highest honors a civilian can receive for acts of heroism. These awards underscored the significant role she played in the war, both on the front lines and behind the scenes. After the war, Josephine Baker's legacy as a war hero was largely overshadowed by her status as an entertainer. However, her courageous actions during World War II remain a testament to the uncelebrated contribution of women during wartime. Baker's decision to use her talents and celebrity to support the French resistance exemplifies the vital role that ordinary people, in extraordinary circumstances, can play in shaping the course of history. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. We are seeing this unfold in Southern California right now. As I'm recording this, fires are raging throughout the Los Angeles area, and we are witnessing so many acts of humanity. Neighbors desperately trying to save each other's homes. Firefighters working against the odds to keep the blazes in check. Pilots from all over the US and Canada risking their lives to drop water and fire retardant on the inferno. Please keep these men and women in your prayers. We need more folks like them. This brings us to the end of another episode of Random History. I hope you enjoyed it and will come back to listen to future episodes. If you would like to view the transcript or sources for this episode, click the link in the description. You can also make suggestions for future topics by clicking that same link or shooting us an email. If you're interested, there's also a link to take you to the merch store for Random History. As always, I want to thank Argos Media for producing Random History and to thank my wife for her continued support and inspiration. Until next time, make some history of your own. Navigator out.